As you can see, I'm back at Adam's Speed Shop, which means I've got more parts for Project Overland Bison. I just recently got back from a road trip with the guys over at Hamburg Racing, and specifically, we went through everything from Salton Sea to Glamis to Yuma, California and Arizona desert, and ran for hours upon hours during the day, finding ourselves through trails at night to get to camp. I did find out very quickly how insufficient the factory lighting was, and I'm very glad that I opted for putting some Squadron Sports up front to just take care of some ditch lights to make sure I can navigate freely in some of the off-road trails. That being said, the Baja Design stuff performed perfectly, and as such, I'm going to be going over how I'm going to complement those lights with a complete line of products that'll help for both driving as well as helping at the campsite. So take a look. Working within the Baja Designs website, it's pretty easy to navigate through and figure out what products you need for both forward lighting, high-speed lighting, cornering, or any of the particular needs you might have for your application. Now, with the AEV Bison, there's definitely a category of parts that are unique because this is a direct fit application. AEV has worked with Baja Designs in creating fundamental fitments for their universal products to fit specifically on this front bumper. So the S8 20-inch front light bar is one of those things, and that's what you're looking at right here. And this was intended to be mounted just below the low tube center section insert, and AEV provides the brackets for that. Obviously, the name that you get to comes from the fact that there are 8, so that's the S8, and 10 inches, and in this case, 20 inches, 2 sections of that. If you notice closely, too, you'll see that the outsides are a flood-style lens on the bulb, and the insides are a spot. So this is primarily my high-speed driving or my forward-facing lights with a little bit of better coverage on the corners. So this will be for most of my high-speed and forward-looking light. I have opted for some lights to go into the fog light position, and of course I've opted for a round light, and that's a great part about Baja Designs. They have a R edition of many of their bulbs. In this particular case, the casings for most of what you'll see in Baja Designs are not round, so if you need something aesthetically that fits into our round style, there are those options. You just have to look for, in this case, the R. So I've got the XLR Sport going into my fog position, and I've opted for an amber as well as a wide position, as I want to use these primarily again for fog driving. I do have those Squadron Sports that I picked for my ditch lights, and they worked great, so I'm going to combine that exact same light also in a wide configuration to be used in the AEV rear bumper, and those will be the lights that I can use for the areas behind the vehicle when I need to get better lighting at the trail or on the sites I will be camping at. So going again with the Squadron Sports for the back. And then on the rooftop, I am going to be using the S1s. And the S1s are great for any kind of a scene light. This happens to be their most diffuse, as you can tell by the lenses that are on them. So that I can mount these up top, and these will mount in the corners of the upper portion of my shell to give light to my camp area. I'm also looking at what I can do for some rock lights, and it's great. Baja Design does have a complete rock light kit. I did go for an amber again. Well, you know, I love the color yellow, and to match the fogs, I went with that as well. So I'll be mounting these to get some better lighting around camp area, and again, to work around some of the areas where I do need better lighting to see my corners when I'm driving in those areas where I will need them. And obviously, you can see right next to me here, I am a S-Pod fan, and the Bantam X will be my primary controller, and I'll be using their touchscreen here for all of my primary interfaces. Between what you can do both on the Wi-Fi and the direct connect and programming the multiple screens, it gives me most of the options I'll be looking for. So that's basically what I'll be working with on the system, and I'm going to go through how each one fits into its application. The first application area is going to be the front of the vehicle. Now, I'm going to show you where I'm going to put the S8 20-inch bar, and it's specific to the ZR2 Bison, as the provisions on the bumper are unique to this vehicle, but this is where it's going to go. On the front of the vehicle, we have the new low tube center section bumper, and as you can see, there are a couple places you can mount things. You can see the fog light provisions there. There was a lot of design work that AEV and GM worked out to make sure that that little radiator back there for the transmission got the proper amount of cooling. So I'm not going to be mounting it there. I'm going to be using the provision area that AEV recommends, which is placing it with brackets right here between the low tube bar bumper and basically underneath the primary airflow for the radiator, but above the primary airflow for the transmission. So with the brackets that are provided, I can mount those to the top of this bumper. It will require some drilling, but that's basically the home for that. The next application area is still a forward-facing light. However, this is down low and the fog light replacement. Let's take a look. If you remember the picture we just saw when I was talking about the S8 20-inch, bar. These are the lights just below that, so that sits there, and we have the fogs in this position. And this is where the XLR, the XL Sports that basically have a round configuration will go. And as you can see, the round fitment is just about perfect for the round hole that's here. Again, AEV does have a specific bracket that makes this a direct bolt-in, but this provides me with the necessary wide lighting. And as you can see with the diffractor that's in this, these are factory fogs, and I wanted to keep that wide dispersion, but go to an amber color for better penetration during fog type driving. So that contrast level was important for me. And as well, I do like the yellow look for that type of lighting. So that's the next position that we were looking at. And again, with AEV's provisions that they've made with the brackets, makes this a pretty straightforward install. Rounding out the last of the forward-facing light applications, I'm going to be talking about my ditch lights. And these I've actually already installed. Take a look. On the last trip, I had to get something on here so that I could see what was going on the side of the trucks as we were doing most of the trails and looking for campsites. So I opted to put the Squadron Sports into this position. And this is really the deal that kind of sealed it for me with Baja Design, as these lights performed flawlessly. Coming to the idea that they are not only compact, they don't stick out past anything where they need to. They dumped a ton of light out, and they don't have enough weight to bobble or move while you're driving. I found that even in the radical position of aiming it the way I did to get the best lighting on the side of the vehicle, I had no issues with wind noise. So traveling at speeds between 50 to 80 miles per hour, the fins and everything on top didn't cause any abnormal harmonics. And if you guys are familiar with running old lights on the top of a vehicle in a traditional light bar position, or anything where it's going to be interfering with the front of the vehicle, there's usually some kind of whistle or whir or some kind of a harmonic that you have to tune out. So those are all things that I didn't want to have to deal with. And specifically, I didn't want to deal with all the light that typically floods on the front of the hood or through the windshield. So again, that was something I wanted to do, was make sure all of my forward-facing lights were on the front of the vehicle, down low where it's most effective. Oftentimes when you put a light bar at the top, and as you can see with the windshield angle here, the Colorado, even compared to the Silverado next to it, has a pretty radical window angle. And putting lights up on top, you dump a lot of light into the driving area, which gives you a lot of reflection. And when you're talking about a lot of high power lights, that can become very distracting. Same thing if you're talking about a ditch light that's going to be running across the hood, and the ZR2 hood is very high, you're talking about a ton of reflection that's going to be coming off the hood that makes driving a lot more complicated. So as you can see, that kind of corner angle is perfect for the ditch light, but when it comes down to most of my forward lighting, I am relying upon the low slung fog lights to take care of my cornering, and the low slung forward facing spot bar to take care of all of my forward driving. So that's pretty much what I'm looking at for all of my forward lights. And really beyond that, EV has a punch area on the rear bumper, and I'll show you what I'm going to do there. And again, I'm using that same exact Squadron Sport that I have for my ditch light put out back, because again, they're a cornering type light to help with seeing around things at low speed, or to basically help out around camp. There's that little hole in the plastic, and basically all you've got to do is push this in. It's kind of snap into place, and there's a bracket back there that AEV provides to mount the Squadron Sport in that location. So effectively you get the bulb mounting from behind, and the housing is completely protected and gives you your rearward facing light. For the most part, that's going to wrap up the on-vehicle mounted lighting that's going to be used while the vehicle's in motion. Apart from the rock lights, which will be used while the vehicle is on the rocks, they're also going to be used as sort of a scene light. So when I am at camp, I will have additional lighting. And with that said, I'm going to be using some more of the S1s, and this will be wrapped around the upper camper shell on the Ascend rack from ARE, and I'll show you where that's going to go. The rack makes perfect provisions in both these areas, and you can see with the hole that they provided in the top up here, you can actually mount the lighting upside down and have the, I should say, the bracket upside down and have a downward firing light. There is also, if you look at the very top here, this is also where the bracket mounts, so there's a solid mount at the bottom if I didn't want to do that. But it gives me a couple of options, and this Ascend basket is the perfect place to mount them, as it stays protected on the inside edge. And one of the other benefits, of course, was the fact that it wasn't very noisy. This rack has performed nearly flawlessly in the sense that it doesn't add any sound or noise in traveling at freeway speeds or off-road. So super happy with that. And while that wraps up my planned lighting that I have so far, I will say again, going on that trip, I did realize there might be a need for a trail light or a rearward facing light that helps the person behind me see where I'm at. As we were traveling through some of the more dusty areas and at the speeds we were, it was certainly nice to be able to see the truck in front of me when he had some trail lights on. So I may end up getting another set of the S1s here, maybe not as diffused, maybe pick a flood, maybe even a spot. I'm not sure exactly yet what I want to do, but those will be mounted on the top of the Airy basket. There is a provision and a shelf on the back that you can see for mounting. If you actually want to turn the basket side, or I should say reverse and have that face forward, you can put a light bar for forward facing. In the back position, it allows for a nice sheltered area for a trail light, and I'm actually contemplating putting on a more sophisticated weatherproof rear sort of speaker system. But I need to talk to my friends at Kicker on that one. So I've got some work ahead of me. I'm going to lay out some of the wiring and get started with that. And I'll be doing a full install guide on everything I'll be putting on the vehicle, showing all the different ways I'm going to do that. So stay tuned for more details if you like it. If not, that's what I'm going to do. And I will do a review once everything is set up and running and show you the system when it's ready to go.